Welcome to this explanation about how to use SQL Server as a basis for a simple SalesStar. In the video, we'll show how to attach an example data store and then inspect and amend its contents. In later sessions, you will use something very similar to this to provide the basis for you creating your own data star and then cube for your assignment. On your copy of the SQL Server, you may well find that we've already put onto the D drive a folder called MDF Files for Microsoft Data Format Files, and within that a copy of the SalesStar database. If you haven't got this, you can always download it from the Blackboard site. Our first step is to attach this database to the SQL Server. Do this by opening the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio software. It may take some time to open. And then, if necessary, connect to the database engine and then type localhost as the server name. Always for authentication, let it use the Windows system. And connect. And then drill into the databases within the storage system. You may see the two databases we had from previous sessions. Don't worry about the recovery pending in this example. But you'll see we haven't got attached the SalesStar. So let's right-click and attach, and then select Add, then navigate to the folder where the files are downloaded, select the SalesStar, and OK. We haven't downloaded any log, so select the bottom of the upload lines and remove, and then OK. And you'll see here the SalesStar has been attached to the database. So now we can expand the SalesStar to look at some of the contents. Let's look at the tables. And we'll see that there are 5 different tables, 4 dimensions and 1 facts table. Let's first investigate the branches dimension by right-clicking and seeing what we can do with it. We can look at its technical design. We could select to view the top 1000 rows of data, or even edit some of the values. Let's start by left-clicking and selecting the top 1000 rows. This generates a script which in turn will list the contents of the table. You can see there are 3 columns in this table: a row identifier, a city identifier, a city name, and then which chain this particular shop belongs to. You can see there are a total of 9 shops in different cities belonging to 2 different chains. As well as just being able to list the data, we can right-click and select to edit some of the values. And we get a chance here of changing some of the values. We also get the option to type in completely fresh values. The red indicators here showing that the table has not yet been saved back to the database. We can do that by closing. And we don't need to save the query. If we were then to revisit the top 1000 rows, we should find that the new values have been entered. Actually, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'd like to reset those back to as they were. So back to the edit and set this value back to Manchester and delete this row. That's back to as it was. Close this. Let's now look at the design. And as you saw earlier, there were 3 columns in this table: the city identifier, which should be an integer, the city name, so this is a text field, it's a variable length character field where the variable length has been set to 15, and the name of the chain for the store is also a text field. In this case, we've set it to a limit of 50 characters. We will leave it as an exercise for you to look at the customers and for the products. But whilst we're looking at dimensions, let's very briefly explore the dates. And if we select to look at the top 1,000 rows there, you will see that there are 4 columns. The date, the month as a number, the month as a name, and the year. The reason we are showing you this is that the row identifier is just called date and not date ID, and is a conventional date rather than a number. We don't need to save any of these queries. These are only the queries that allow us to select and view, and we can always regenerate them. So whenever it offers to save something, enter no. And now let's look at the fact sales. So we'll select the top 1,000 rows and see them listed. Immediately you'll spot a slight difference in the layout of the tables. That the first 5 columns are pointers, or they are foreign keys, to the dimensions. And then we have 2 measures, the value and the quantity of sales. Also, there are a lot more rows. It's only showing 1,000 rows here because the initial query was for selecting the top 1,000. If we were to remove that and then execute this query again, it will now show us all the rows in the table, which turns out to be 20,000. When you run this, you may get a different value for 20,000. We may have changed some of the underlying data. And you can see here that on the 15th of December 2015, in city number 2, for customer number 2, for product number 10, they paid £20 and bought 15 of them. These 20,000 values currently are completely random, and we'll show you how we generated all these 20,000 without you having to type them all in one by one. And we can also look at the design of this table. And we should find that a facts table has an identifier, which is an integer, then foreign key pointers off to the different dimensions, which are all integers except for the date, and then 2 measures, one of which in this case happens to be a money value, and the other is the quantity they bought. A floating number is one with a decimal point in it. Again, we needn't save any of these queries. Then the final thing to show is the database diagrams. And at the moment, it's saying there are no database diagrams. In fact, you may even get this message. If you do get this error message, solve it quickly by the following method. You need to visit the SalesStar and right-click, select its properties, go to the Files entry, and you may well discover that the owner field is completely empty. Select the 3 dots and browse to find your login code. Select that and OK, and now you become the owner of the database. OK, and back to the database diagrams, and this time when you right-click for a new database diagram, it should work. If it asks about installing tools, then just say yes, and it will do those instantly. In this example, select all 5 and add them to the database diagrammer. You can see them being added and close, and then I'm going to zoom out by Control and changing the mouse wheel a little bit. Let's move them across a bit. So you can see the tables. It's already picked up that there is a link from the facts sales to each of the dimensions. If any one of those is missing, and I'm going to delete it for the moment, then you yourself can recreate the link, for example, by selecting the city ID and dragging it across to the city ID. OK. Let's do that again for products. I'm deliberately going to delete the link and then drag a link from product ID to product ID. Unfortunately, Unlike a lot of other diagramming tools, which draw the relationship line from the specific field to the specific field, this diagrammer only shows it table to table. It's a little bit harder to see which ones are linked. But for drawing stars, this doesn't actually cause much of a problem, because we're always going to link between similar names. If you're consistent, then there's no real issue to this. And finally, just close any diagrams you have. It doesn't matter whether you save it or not. So now you have seen how to attach a database to the SQL Server and then view some of the contents. In the next video, we'll go on to create a cube out of this star. Thank you for watching this video.